Star Parker, it's your first time on Issues in the News. Welcome. Now, I notice on your online TV show that often you're defending President Trump. Is he being serious and focused enough about the dangers of coronavirus?
I think he spent quite a bit of time being serious and focused on what the science was telling us early on when most didn't know any information about the coronavirus. But the more we endured and shut down the country, I believe that the president has tapped into a sentiment of a lot of Americans that say, let's just get back to as much normal as we can. We want to go back to work. We are adults. We want to see if there's an opportunity for us to self-govern. So I'm not sure if he's in leadership, or is it the people that are pushing him to be the leader that says, let's reopen our economy. Yes, it is very serious that we have over 100,000 deaths, as well as the virus is still spreading, but an emphasis has been taken away from that particular pandemic and concern, and a lot of it is because the conversation has shifted now to race and race issues.
Does it help or hurt President Trump's campaign?
Since the coronavirus has become a political issue, it depends on how both sides play. If we see a new outburst in our country, and some of the numbers are coming in, then perhaps by November, people will be still concerned. But I think that in this situation, he may have his cards on the economy, because he knows when people are faring well economically, they feel a little bit better about keeping the status quo. So I think the jury's still out. We are now opening up different areas here in Washington, D.C. We've moved into phase 2 to see, can we self-govern? Can people get out and about and not see those numbers go back up? Is it a long shot? Sure it is. Does he take it personally? Yes, but 60-something million people kind of like that edge. They like him being that entrepreneurial, what did one author call it, a productive narcissist, so that we can kind of set the country straight and their opinion. So I see the country is breaking down now into these two areas, so where some look to government to answer a whole lot of questions, and others say, leave us alone, we would prefer to try to work out our own personal details as locally as possible. Is there a middle that can swing the election one way or another? We won't know that until October, in my opinion.
But Star Parker, what about that theory that Joe Biden actually doesn't have to give many speeches? The opinion polls suggest that right now he might be 10 percentage points ahead of President Trump. And so if Biden's smart, he won't do much.
Well, that could be. I mean, there is a precedent. King Solomon said that even a fool seems wise if it keeps his mouth shut. So sometimes just playing low key can kind of work. I'm of the thought that Biden might not be the candidate. We all have to admit that there is something going on beyond just the political of him versus Trump. People age, they do have to make new decisions. And if his time is up for not being able to be on the political stage again, I think the Democrats are perhaps thinking about that. It could be even why they moved their convention till after the Republican convention, so that they can assess, is this going to be the candidate? I actually have $5 on the governor of New Jersey. I think they're going to switch Biden out.
Star, one other thing, I know on your TV show, you often have a lot of African-American activists and political observers. The polls are indicating that among African-Americans, it could be around 90% for Biden, only 10% for Trump. That's kind of the way it was 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton versus Trump. Is that what you expect, or do you think the president's going to get more black support?
It depends on their strategy in the battleground states, and I know that the Trump administration is working aggressively on their strategy, what that's going to look like, to see if they can increase that number a couple of points. But back on the other part of this conversation about whether it will be Biden or not, I actually think that they have an opportunity as Democrats to engage society in a more positive message. What we're seeing right now is a referendum on Donald Trump, which was brought up already. I don't know that that's going to be enough to take us into next year with the black community, because the black community now is looking for serious answers. And COVID and whether we should be hiding away is not going to be enough to make the case that this is why Biden is not on the campaign trail, because the hypocrisy involved when we see the protesters out there. All of a sudden, Americans are able to gather and complain in the public square, but then we're not able to have conventions. So it's going to be interesting to see if they keep Joe Biden.
Thank you, Star. We're talking about black voters in the U.S. Many of them may be watching closely as America reacts to recent killings of unarmed black people by police in Minneapolis and Atlanta, for instance. Protests are continuing in many cities, and that includes here, America's capital, Washington. Star Parker, when the protesters pulled down statues of famous people, including soldiers who fought for the Confederacy in America's Civil War in the 1860s, but also people who owned slaves way back when. Is this kind of protest what some people might call righteous anger?
People may try to make that case in America, but because of how America is designed with our fundamental principles rooted in Christianity and capitalism and a constitution which avails us to law and order, I think most Americans will conclude that if we are going to remove statues, we need to understand that this is the role of the locals to vote. And if they want those statues vote, this is what government is about. City councils decide to take up or pull down, which is what we saw in Charlottesville. So this incredible growth of those that are just angry at all of America as if this is an evil country, so we need to erase our history, are similar to the youth that will go and cut themselves up because they didn't get their way. I believe that most Americans still want a civil society. So to move ourselves to where we're removing statues, that some people don't even know who that statue represents or what that statue represents, it will tire over time.